Good morning, everybody. It is winter, and it is the Tuesday morning that you've been waiting for. The Bang and I are here to look after you, hopefully make your morning a little bit more bearable, and tell you what's going on in the world, tell you what's going on in our lives, tell you hopefully some things that you want to know, some things that might interest you, some things that might keep keep your brain working. So what's happening, Lebang? How's it going with the pregnancy?
Oh man, it is totally going. Every
Hang on, let me
week I
just turn
get.
this down. Hold on a second. I can hardly hear you. It's my fault, not yours. Just wait a sec. There we
Okay.
go. Got the settings wrong. There we go. Yes, go ahead. How's
Is
the
that
pregnancy?
better?
It's
Can you
much
hear me
better.
now?
I
Good.
can hear you clearly.
It's going good, dude. It's just like countdown phase. Like my phone is just constantly reminding me every week, like boom, 3 weeks, boom, 31 week, boom, 32 weeks. I'm like, okay, I get it. So it's happening any day now. Thank you. So it's
Yeah,
it's exciting times. Equally like stressful times because now I need to like prepare and get stuff. And I've
right.
always like pictured having one of those really exaggerated births where like I'm walking in the mall and then like my water just breaks.
Like
It
some
never,
kind of
it just
drama.
dude, and the security guard starts running around and everybody in the mall starts screaming, but that literally never ever happens. So I'm just like,
Because
yeah,
I mean,
excited.
again, I don't know. I've never been through this, but you get like a quite a bit of warning, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
to
right.
say the least. That's a nice way
Mhm.
of putting it. Yeah, it's quite a bit of warning. Most times anyway, like your body will say, okay, cool, it's time. It's nothing like in the movies. There's no dramatic gush
No,
of
no.
like waterfallness and panic and blah blah. It's literally like, oh, okay, cool. The water has leaked out. Let us pack our bags, get in the car, and make our way to the hospital. So yeah, it's that time of the year again in my case.
Well,
All is well.
the good news is humans have been successfully giving birth to children for thousands of years, and I'm sure everything will be fine. And you've already got practice. I mean, you've had some before, so it's not as if this is your first one either. I can understand if it's your first ever pregnancy and you're nervous because you're not sure what's going to happen. Jesus, by
Yeah.
the way, I'm nervous. You want to see the panic on the crypto markets at the moment. Bitcoin is touching $30,700 this morning, which is pretty low. That's the lowest it's been for a
Gee,
while.
how did that
So,
happen?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Everything is just is having a tough time at the moment. I mean, just look at the U.S. stock market too, because these things are interesting to people, and a
Mm,
lot of people get very nervous about like any massive financial moves. And right now, nobody knows. I said this to Sean Sanders when we had him on last week. Yeah, the US stock market's also a piece of shit at the moment. And he was saying, well, people just don't know where to invest because pretty much everything you're touching
mm,
at the moment is just really, really dodgy because there's so much going on in the US. The Ukraine Russia war is not helping. So people are nervous about that, just like you are nervous about like whether or not you're going to suddenly have your baby in a in a shopping mall.
no, there's just so much. There's a lot of instability in the world generally as like
Yeah.
a concept, and we can't control any of that. So I
Mm-mm.
understand that people are just genuinely nervous. I just think like take it every day as it comes, keep it moving, and follow your heart. If your heart is saying go to crypto right now in the condition that it's in, then you
Follow
have
your heart.
yourself to
No,
blame.
no,
Follow
hold on.
your heart.
No, we've been down this road. That's the last thing you should follow. You heard what Dr. Hanan said. Don't follow your heart.
Your heart is lying to you.
No, he said follow your brain. Follow your brain. Your brain is in charge, not your heart.
That's what he said? Oh, I must have missed that episode, Gareth. Sure.
No, no,
Woe
no.
is me. How are you? How are you, Gareth? What's happening
I'm
with you,
good.
bro?
I'm good. I went to a funeral yesterday, which was not great.
Oh, sorry.
Shame. I don't know if you know Alan Ford's dad.
Oh, yes, his father. Yes, I
Yeah, so
remember.
Alan's dad, he had a heart attack on the golf course. I mean, can you imagine? On the golf course. I mean, he loved
Damn.
golf, and he was
Mm.
playing golf last Wednesday, and he had a heart attack on like the sixth hole, and that was just tickets. So poor old Alan and
That's
his
scary.
family having a very tough
Mm.
time at the moment, and it was good to catch up with them. Sorry, I've just got like a mini nosebleed going on here as well, which is not great.
Jeez. You say
Yeah.
that so casually.
No, it's fine. It happens from time to time, especially when it starts to get all dry. And I was talking about this on the show the other day, and everybody said, humidifiers are a waste of money. Don't bother with that.
Uh,
It's
uh,
such
uh.
stupid stuff.
No,
No,
no.
you
If you
no, you
recall,
didn't. You didn't. I know.
yes, yes.
I'm
I said
I'm
you should definitely do it.
no, I'm giving you credit on this one. But it was such a beautiful service because the whole family were there, and they stood together, a very close family. And you can't help thinking when you go to something like that that we're all going to have to go through this at some point. Every family, you lose your folks at some
Mm,
point. And I was just thinking how, and it's not so much about other people, it's like how you as a family want to deal with things like that when they do inevitably come your way.
for
And
sure.
I don't like being too depressing so early in the morning, but you can't help it when you've just been to a funeral. And I knew Alan's dad reasonably well. He was a very jolly, happy, gregarious, fun, humorous, generous dude. He was a bouncy, happy guy. He really was, and had a lot of energy and a twinkle in his eye. And I sometimes
Mm,
think, well, that just reminds you it doesn't actually matter. It's going to happen in any case, whether you're a miserable, sad, grumpy, bedridden, sour person, or you're one of those people who's out there living life. It's still going to come for you.
yeah.
And Michael says here, golf and bowls are the deadliest sports around. But Michael, is that because old people play them? You know, um,
Hmm.
because I do think he's right. I'm not disputing the fact that those are probably the most deadly sports because a lot of old people die playing bowls and golf. But I think it must be because they're old. I don't think it's because those
Yeah.
sports
It's
particularly,
regardless of those actual sports.
I don't think it's because you exert yourself so much when you when you're playing bowls. But yeah, it's a horrible thing to do. And he was 70, so that's not that old these days. 70.
Yeah, 70 is kind of like you still have, well, in the most of the time you still have like all the energy, and you kind of
Mm,
still you've got it going on. But to your point of like either way you're gonna die, whether you're a great person or a shitty person,
yeah.
sure. um but like do you want people to remember you like as that shitty person that you were? I mean, sure, at that point it's completely out of your control and there's nothing you can do about it. And if you have lived maybe a life of lies, and on one end you have been great
Well,
and on the other end you have been shitty.
one of the
it's
few
it's
one
really
of the
the
few times,
memories.
the only time I can remember at a funeral in South Africa, because we just eulogize everyone when they die as being fantastic, right? You can see it even with
Everyone does.
politicians. You see it with
Hmm.
really, really bad people that the whole, everyone comes out and goes, oh, they were so wonderful and they did these wonderful things and they were so superb and everybody loved them.
Yeah,
Only
yeah.
time I didn't see that was that, remember that Achadi who pitched up at that one
Oof.
funeral?
Oof. Where there was
Uh,
like water bottles being thrown everywhere, and that
was
was
it
just
one of
hella spicy.
it wasn't the Maponya funeral. It was someone else, but it was a
He
real,
was a, he
that was
was
the moment where I
I
realized
was
that there are people who don't toe the line at the funeral, who don't say all the nice
yeah.
things.
But you see, here's the thing. It's like the main family
Mm,
like is still keeping it real, like, oh my gosh, we lost our brother, oh, he was so amazing. But like those who know the truth about what was going on will take out all the files, and it's almost assumed that no, once a person's dead, we leave he or she takes the files with them. They bury
yeah,
with the secrets. No, no,
right.
no, sir. No, it's like the funeral's like, yeah, we've been waiting, and if it's spicy enough, it'll come out, which is interesting because I haven't been it's not really common in
Mm,
culture, especially to do that to a person that's deceased. Like you have to
right.
just tread lightly. If there has been, some drama, you keep it to yourself. It's like, it's like
Uh-huh.
secrets. That was the first time I think we saw for real that, hey man, your secrets will catch up with you.
Yeah. And people don't like to tell the truth about these things, but inevitably it's going to come out anyway, right? So they're going to be these people who say, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, you may think that's all good and well, but actually, I just think it's time and place specific too." And I think, you know, it's at the funeral itself, just leave people alone, let them grieve and let them get
Mm,
over it. And
mm,
also there's no need to bring up stuff about like that Rahadi did about the affairs and, you know, the side family and all of that stuff. You can always bring that up, but I just think give people a little bit of space. And I'm all for
yeah,
telling the truth. You know me, but there's got to be a time and place for all of that stuff too. Anyway,
definitely.
you've got this thing where we need to vote for you. So this is important because
Oh yeah.
I mean I saw you going on about this all weekend, and I went and voted, but you still need 200 more votes. What is this first of all, and what is the prize, and you know what do we have to do here? Like
Okay,
give us
cool. So,
give us the gist.
as you know, Gareth, I'm a woman of many, many talents, and one of those talents is I'm actually a voice artist. So
Yeah.
I found this competition online where they're like, "Hey, are you a voice artist? Is your voice cool? If so, enter now." So I was like, "Okay, cool." So I entered, and I did really, really well. So I just basically need to get as many votes as possible. The prize is cash. All they've said is win some cash. They haven't said how much. They haven't
Okay.
said when. So I could be literally trying to win 200 rands, or I
Hmm.
could be trying to win 2,000 rands. But I just need as many likes as possible. It's literally all over my page. If you just go to my page, it's at Leban Kosana on IG and just hit like on my story. I just like the person that's in the lead right now, I think has like
Hmm.
600 votes and I've got 400. But guess what I have that they don't? I have a Gareth Cliff. So I figured, let me holler at Gareth Cliff and get more votes. So that's what's happening now. But it's just exciting when it's nice to use my voice to make some extra nappy money, is what I say. So
All
it's
right. Well,
exciting.
the extra nappy money sounds like a good plan. I think that sounds
Yes,
great.
yes.
Okay, so
Uh-huh.
go along. Let's go and help Lebung to win this. So Michael says before it got cool, I used to get pissed with the PE Bowls Club with the old bullies. Dop was cheap and the toppies had great stories. Yeah, but then obviously that's also where you learnt about the people who die from bowls, Michael. What people think of me while I'm alive doesn't bug me. So when I'm dead, who cares? That's a very interesting point of view because a lot of
Hmm.
people, you know, to many of us, what drives us is our legacy. It's like, well, what am I going to leave behind? You know, what will people say about me when I'm gone? And
Mm.
maybe that's a dumb thing to think about because who really cares? I mean,
But then how should we
are
look at
people
it then?
are people even going to think about you when you're gone? Let's just let's just think about how often we consider people who, you know, at the time there was a huge big noise, huge big splash, and obviously we're talking about, you know, not historical figures and characters who are part of the history of our nation or international, you know, celebrities or news people or whatever. But I
Mm.
often wonder, like, what about ordinary folks like us? What happens to us? And do people really are people still going to think about you? Because as you get older, I suppose you also have less and less friends because they start popping their clogs at some point.
Yeah.
So why are we all wrapped up in stuff that might not even be that important in the long run? It is a good point that's being raised there. I think that's valuable. Why do we care, as Freedom Fighter says, about what
But
people think of us when we're dead?
look, I completely agree. And you know this about me as well, Gareth. I could care less. But I
Hmm.
think to a certain extent, it's about how really it makes us feel while we are still alive. Sure, when we dead, it won't matter. But while we're here, we don't really, want to go out of our way to behave like assholes so that we feel that way. Like there's a certain feeling that comes with just like being like the best version of yourself, like being you, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
finding, even if it's just a few people that really fucks with you, that say, oh, I really
yeah,
dig Gareth, even if it's two people,
sure.
those two people are what matter. It's not about getting the 200 people, it's just about getting the few people that really dig you. And as long as you know you've clocked those two people and you and
Mm,
the three of you were musketeers and you made it work and that
maybe
made you happy, that's what counts, I think.
Easy Picking says, check Lebang chasing clout. You go, woman.
Ooh, ooh, you know.
Well, I love stories like this. So Dude 69 says, at my uncle's funeral, I met my cousins that I'd never known about. That man lived. Never knew he had about three families because the one that I did know about was all I had. Drama was
Oh
had at
my
that
God.
funeral. Yo, sure.
You see? And that happens. That literally, it happens more than you guys think. At funerals, children come out of nowhere. That was my dad too. That was my dad too. I need some of the estate as well. And you're like, where have you been? Like, are we
Yeah.
siblings? It happens, not just in movies.
I don't know whether to respect someone who has like two side families that didn't know about each other, or whether I am horrified that they got away with it. Because there's a part of me that you have to give credit. Like, that's a lot of work. You know how much lying and manipulation and and maneuvering you have to do.
Scheming.
You must be so tired when you go to sleep at night. You must be like,
Yeah.
I would be too exhausted to be, you know, keeping two girls on the side and this one over here, and it's too tiring. I would be finished. I'd be like, just leave me alone. I just want to sleep.
Yeah, no, but it happens. And I'm sure when you get to your deathbed, you're quite relieved. You're like, phew, sure, I don't need to keep up this charade anymore. Like,
Yeah.
you're glad that, that part is over. But Gareth, it happens and it's scary. My partner was telling me a story yesterday about he met a lady at the slow lounge at the airport,
Mm.
and she just kind of sat down. I was like, sorry, can I sit with you, whatever? And she started talking about the work that she does, and she was like, guys, at your earliest convenience, put a will together,
Oh yeah. Oh
because
yes, absolutely.
she is in the business of, figuring out like assets and stuff once people pass. She's
Mm.
seen ten siblings fighting over 1,000 rand. She's
Oof,
seen two siblings fighting over 1,000,000 rand. Whatever is left to your name, whether it's money in your account, whether it's
absolutely.
assets, please make sure you have it written on something that is a formal document, because it literally gets so messy. It becomes Muvango. It becomes a literal
It does,
drama
right?
series so quickly, dog. Oof,
Oh
oof.
man. No, seriously, this is such an important thing. And I think we've had clients of ours, people who've advertised on Cliff Central who do wills. And I can't remember who it was. It's been a while now, but this is so important. And you think, I don't have that much stuff. It doesn't really matter. It does matter, and people are going
It
to fight
does.
over it. And it's amazing how
Mm.
even the best families, there always are ructions after something like that happens. The other thing is, like, you have to think about what you want for yourself when you die. Like, do you want a big ceremony? Do you just want something quiet? Where do you want to be buried? That kind of shit matters, because otherwise you leave it to
Mm.
your family to have to decide. Sometimes they don't want to think about that stuff. They just want to follow the instructions that you've laid down. And especially if you have some complicated wishes that you want this or you want that, or you expect these people there, or you don't want that person there, or whatever. Like, you got to put the stuff in writing.
No,
It's
you
um
definitely do.
it's important. It's like being tidy. It's like having your affairs in order. They always say having your affairs in order. It's really
Yeah.
important. This
Yeah.
and
And
I I
it'll
just
it'll also just save you so much. Like, not just you as the deceased, but as the family members that are also participating in this whole thing, knowing
mm,
exactly what the person wanted. I
yes,
actually spoke to my
it
dad
helps.
quite recently about this. He's like, yo, dude, I've already booked the cremation, blah, blah, blah. As soon as I
Oh,
kick the bucket, that's where you go. They've got all my details. Don't do this whole 1 week thing where your visitors are coming and going and eating. Dude, one day, make it quick, in and out. I'll see you on the other side. I was like, that has just helped me so much, because I don't want the stress of like having to think about what we're gonna do and where we're gonna bury him and what we would have liked and blah blah blah.
yeah.
It's actually just like
Well,
instructions, and
I
how,
got to
and all
say,
I have to deal with is like the crying part, I guess.
I've got to say also that I have such a preference for the Jewish funerals, and I've been to a few of those, because it all happens the very next day. I mean, sometimes there's a slight delay, but usually it's the next day, and everybody goes. It's a short ceremony. There's a little walk to the grave. The box goes in. You take a shovel. You put one shovel full of dirt in the lid, and then you're out of there. And that is it. It's closure.
That's
It's
it.
finished. There's none of this long drawn out, like 2 weeks, and the funeral home and the expensive coffin and the tedious in between stuff. And it just boom, it happens. And I got to tell you, like, because no one wants to deal with this stuff. No one wants to think about this. And no one wakes up in the morning and goes, today I want to plan this funeral of mine. But the thing about the Jewish funerals, it's also It doesn't matter how rich or important you are. You get a pine box like everyone else. You get put on in a plot of land. It's sometimes not even near your family, but it's everyone's kind of in the same section of the cemetery, and it's
Mm.
just done. Like it's so elegant and efficient, and it's just a process. It's something that you have to go through, and the quicker you get it done and dusted, the better your ability to move on. I think. I don't know if that's true for everybody, but to me, that seems the way to do it. I remember was it the last Pope? Um, John Paul II, when he died, I mean, they kept the guy in that box open to the elements for like 2 weeks before they eventually buried him. I thought,
Damn.
that's a long ass time to keep someone around after they
Mm.
died. Just get it done as quickly as possible. It's like there doesn't need to be this fuss. And I know
Yeah.
that there are different traditions and everything else. But I think Tatleho says, guys, please, all this death stuff is depressing me. I can't stand death. I want to live forever. Me too, dude, but you're not going to. I
Do
mean, they
you
might
though?
develop something, but I do. Yes, we've talked about this,
We've
don't you know?
spoken about this. No, like, come on. Do you still, after everything
Yeah.
we discussed?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
100% I do. Yeah, I just don't want to be I don't want to be ill. I don't want to be old. I don't want to be crabby. I want to be like young and live forever. So in other words,
Oh, so a
I want to either
vampire.
I either want to be able to like save game where I am now, right? So I think I could carry on at this age and I'll be very happy because I don't have too many aches and pains. I'm quite in reasonably good physical condition.
Mm.
I can see properly. I can hear properly. Um, the teeth are still in my head. My joints don't go click and pop when I get up. So this is a good place to save game. But if I could subtract even a few years, then that'd be fine too. So depending on how medical science evolves, I want to choose around about this time, or maybe I'd subtract a maximum of 5 years from it, but somewhere around there, and then stay there for as long as you can. And obviously, you can't live, even if they find through, and medical science is some way off of this, unfortunately. But even if they found some way, they still can't stop you from doing really dumb stuff like walking out in front of a bus, for example. I mean, that's not going to save you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that. And the reason I say save game easy pickings is because if you're a gamer, like at some point when you're doing really well in the game and you think I'll pick it up at this point, that's when you save. And I think of life like that a lot. When I'm having a lot of fun, when I look around me and I see family and friends enjoying themselves and laughing and everybody smiling and enjoying each other's company, that's the moment I just take a little screenshot in my head. I go boom, boom, boom. I don't take an actual picture, but I take a screenshot in my head because
Mm.
I think that gratitude is in those moments. And I don't want to get all Oprah and too philosophical with anybody right now. But I do feel that if we don't take those moments and store them in our memory, then we're letting them slide by. And those are the moments that make life fantastic, right? It's when we're
Yeah.
talking, it's like when we're talking nonsense on the show and everybody's laughing and having a good time. You'll sometimes see I'm just like sitting back and enjoying the show, enjoying what everyone else is doing, and I'm just taking a little mental screenshot because that's the stuff that makes me happy.
This is all
And I think,
sounding very Black Mirror-y. Like,
well, it probably is. I mean, the way we're starting to think is that, and there are all these people who say that actually this is a simulation, that
mm,
all these tech geniuses in Silicon Valley genuinely believe that we are in a simulation. And if it is a simulation, then you're in charge of your game, right? I mean, you might
for
not be
sure.
completely in charge. There's certain conditions that are going on around you that are being manipulated, perhaps, or that are just evolving, depending on your point of view. And there might be a god in the machine. There might not be. That depends on what you believe because you're playing your game. But to me, like if I'm playing this game, I'm going to decide when I want to save. I'm going to decide when I'm going to take a screenshot. I'm going to decide when to take a coffee break. and and I'm not a gamer, but I follow game theory. And to me, the victory conditions are have as much fun as you can because actually, once you won the game, it's very
Mm.
boring from that point on. In any
So
game,
life is a game.
I think so, Lebang. I think so, and I
Mm.
think it's a fun game to play. And I don't think there's any real point in starting to attribute too much importance to yourself or to the game. Just go along for enjoy the ride, man. I do love it.
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of fun. And of course, when you come to terms with things like yesterday when I went to this funeral, you see that some people's game ends early, or some people's game ends suddenly, or perhaps because they expected to carry on for longer, but the game just suddenly stopped. And some people's game carries on for much too long. Those people that linger. But I want to play, man. I'm enjoying this. I'm having a lot of fun. The characters in my game I really like, and I
Yeah.
feel that this is the best way to look at it. This is an analogy I like.
What do you think about just like letting go of the controller just for a moment and just letting the game just sort of like play itself and see where you go and see how you do, and maybe not always having the joystick in your hand pressing X and R and left and right and up and down. I mean, there could be some real joy in that.
Yeah, uh, I'm not good at giving up the controls, but
Yeah,
sometimes you have.
that's mm,
Sometimes you have to. You have to realize that there's only so many ways you can play this particular thing. There's going to be an outcome that doesn't have you as the main actor, and that's
yep.
okay too. I think we need to transfer Gareth into a robot when he dies so he can carry on with this podcast. We demand entertainment at 6 a.m. All right, well, I'm not going anywhere in a hurry, so don't panic. And Gary says, don't take yourself so seriously. Absolutely, Gary. Perfect. Tracy says, Alfred Hitchcock spoiled funerals for me. That one where the woman escapes from prison, gets buried alive, and then when the time comes for her to be dug up, the person who was supposed to dig her up is dead in the same coffin. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah,
Yikes.
Alfred Hitchcock. I can't read that stuff. There are all these murder mysteries that are starting to become like Agatha Christie and all of that stuff that are popular again, and they're starting to remake some of them. And I've just never really been into those murder stories. I've never even watched that crime and investigation channel, so I'm not the target market for this. I
You're
get
not
it.
the guy. Yeah, some of them really aren't great. Like if it's not your cup of tea, then don't even bother
Mm.
with it. But they can get interesting. Like if it's your vibe, if you're into it, then it kind of works out for you. More the games than the movies, though. The movies are just usually terrible,
Oh
like
yeah.
weird spin-offs. Speaking of movies, dude, there's a
Mm?
new Avatar trailer. Do you remember Avatar with the
Oh,
blue people? Yeah. It took them 10 years and there's a new one. I haven't seen it though. Like I haven't even seen the trailer because I just feel
is
like this could either
it
really, really
what's
work
his name?
well or you
James.
guys could fuck this up.
His name James Campbell, the director.
Cameron, I think it's James Cameron.
James
Yeah,
Cameron. That's right.
yeah.
So James Cameron's directing this one as well.
It should be him because it said another
Well,
10 years for this movie to come out.
yeah,
And who do
anyway,
we know that takes that long to master his craft? It's usually
James
James
Cameron.
Cameron. Hmm.
Okay. Well, let's do it. I mean, I'll watch that. I think that'll be fun. I
Yeah,
enjoyed
let's
the
see.
first one. The other thing I see that is coming is the HBO are busy putting together, or they've already put together, and they're going to release sometime this year, like a Game of Thrones spin-off about the
Okay.
time before Game of Thrones, and I think that's an obvious move by them. Game of Thrones was so successful. There's also the Star Wars Obi-Wan movie, which is coming out. So there's quite a lot of stuff that I think I might want to
Hmm.
see. And all of this is in that sci-fi realm, the fantasy
Yeah,
realm. Game
yeah.
of Thrones, Star Wars, Avatar, they're all in the same category. It does sound like it could be good, though. Do you know what I started watching yesterday?
Mhm.
I only watched one episode, and it looks pretty hilarious. Is something with Mike Myers. It's called The Pentaveret, and it's
Oh
about
gosh, I
this.
watched it.
Have you seen it? Okay, so
I've,
I
I've,
only
I
saw one
got through
episode.
like a bit of episode one. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny, but it's not screaming funny yet. I mean,
it's
I'm going to give it a
not.
try.
And it's Mike
Let's see.
Myers, right? So your hopes are up.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah,
oh, dude, Mike Myers, you're a legend. You know this is going to be great. And then every other joke, you're like, oh, okay.
right.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I'm
it's
I'm curious to see where it goes, so I'm going to give it a try. But this could be fun. So apparently the Game of Thrones thing is called House of the Dragon. It's out in August. They've got some big names in there. Tubbo also a big fan of that. Um, I saw a clip of George Lucas at the Miami F1 Grand Prix. He looks like the fourth is no longer with him. Well, George Lucas is no spring chicken either, you know. Isn't it funny how humans, says Mike, always make the entire universe about themselves? Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I don't know what you want me to say about it. I don't know what you want me to say about that, Mike, but that is absolutely true. It always has been true. Any person, even the most evolved, brilliant human being, at some point they start thinking that the universe is all about them. Carl says, I've also started watching the Pentaveret. What a load of shit, but I can't stop watching. Yeah.
Yes, that's the perfect way to describe it. Like you can almost see that, okay, this may not land, but it's Mike Myers and he's on his eighth character. That's him. And
Oh,
you
man.
love him. So it's like, okay, cool. I'm
I
also
do love him.
I'm just watching it for the sake of it's him, but I don't know if it's gonna go up there as like my faves.
Well, Riv One says there's also a Lord of the Rings series coming out in September on Amazon Prime. Good heavens! I mean, this is a bumper year for anybody who's into that stuff. This is going to be the best year ever for people who are into fantasy and sci-fi, right?
That's what it looks like.
Oh, okay, well, lots of people who are criticizing the Pentaveret. Tabo says Mike Myers is washed up now. He tried to get Key from Key and Peele to help him with it. Cuck show. The jokes are so dumb.
But he is pretty washed up. I think he's kind of just, it's hard to adapt to the new times. That thing of being yourself, like playing every second or third character in like the same 20 minutes, it does get a bit much. It gets a bit much. And I think his craft is brilliant. I think he's one of the best, really good at what he does. But in this particular case, somebody really should have said, look, dude, we can leave this one in the drafts. We don't have to hit send. But here we are.
There's so much pressure also that you have to, people feel they have to keep on coming up with new material all the time, especially people who've already had success. I saw, who is that girl who was in Game of Thrones? Sophie something or another. She married one of the Jonas brothers.
Okay.
You know which one I'm talking about? And I suddenly thought about her. I don't know why I thought about her, but she's, she did that role of Sansa in Game of Thrones, and she was very good at it, and people loved her. But I'm wondering, like, is there huge pressure on her right now because she has to have some new... Sophie Turner, thank you. Tracy, thank you very much for that. So Tracy's helping us out this morning. So Sophie Turner, she married the one Jonas brother, and she's been very successful. But now I wonder if she wanders around Hollywood and she spends, the money that she's probably made good money. But do you think she wakes up in the morning going, oh, people are judging me because I haven't done anything today?
No, I saw her in X-Men shortly after her stint of, but the memory that I have of that was just nonsense. And I haven't really seen her in much since then. Like she's just kind of like, doing a thing as a married woman, I guess.
I just randomly thought about her. I don't know why her, because there's so many other people who've been in one big successful show, and maybe they've been in one movie, and then it kind of goes off the burn.
That is quite random.
I suddenly thought this poor girl. Anyway, let's look at some headlines.
Can I, before you go, Michael's asking if you started Moon Knight, and I also need to know, Gareth, if you have started Moon Knight, and if the answer is no, then why? It's probably one of the best shows that are out there right now. It's like a Marvel. Yes, it's so good. Like mentally, emotionally, just watch it. It's up there.
I did mention it yesterday on the show because someone suggested it to me over the weekend. So I've got that on the playlist as well. So I'll get to it, I promise you. All right.
Can't wait.
So here's a very weird tweet from Elon Musk yesterday. He said in a very cryptic tweet, he basically said, if I die mysteriously, he says, if I die under mysterious circumstances, it's been fun. Now, we don't know whether he's joking or not, but the South African-born businessman shared a tweet which received massive engagement, even got the attention of his mum, who called him out for it, saying, it is not funny. When your mum calls you out and says, that is not funny, right? Shortly after, he shared a post that appears to be testimony claiming he is involved in supplying the fascist forces in Ukraine with military communication equipment. So I think he's just toying around. He's got a sense of humor. He said, for example, he went to buy Coca-Cola and put the cocaine back in it. He's been very funny about this whole Twitter takeover. He's got a sense of humor about a lot of stuff. He's trolling people. That's kind of what Elon's been doing for the last while. He's having a lot of fun. He's made millions and millions and millions. They say he's the richest man in the world. So I think he's just playing around. But the Tesla and SpaceX CEO has been very vocal about making changes to Twitter. This could be the reason he felt it best to take it to the app to tell his followers that he thinks his life could be at risk. Again, the people who take him too seriously, I think, are being stupid. I think he's just kidding. But even so, you know how people are. They love a conspiracy theory, right?
Of course, nobody's gonna take that and be like, "Oh, he's joking," because that's what he does. Like a part
Uh-huh.
of you is like, "Is he though?" Because the truth is, we don't want to sit here in a few weeks' time and say, "Oh shit, he was serious." We want to believe that he's joking, but also, why would he just randomly tweet that?
I mean, he probably has received death threats. Anyone famous and important in the world these days probably does get them, even if it's just on Twitter from douchebags who are living in their parents' basement. Because a lot of people who make these things, they think they're anonymous and they can get away with it. But
Mm.
so he says, if I die under mysterious circumstances, it's been nice knowing you. And then his mom says that's not funny. So he replies to her on Twitter and says, "Sorry, I'll do my best to stay alive." So I think he's kidding. I really do. But there are a lot of people who say, well, it could be like he's busy warning people because he knows something we don't. I don't think you should read too much into it. This guy's always taking the piss out of everything.
He truly
But
is.
speaking of death threats, Gregor Dlamini, you remember I interviewed on my TV show, and he says that his life is in danger. He has been mistaken for a suspect in the Hillary Gardi murder case. Now, this is quite a story because he's the former Fees Must Fall activist and Wits graduate. He has been mistaken for one of the suspects arrested in the murder of Hillary Gardi. Dlamini's mistaken identity stems from the fact that one of the suspects is alleged to be from Swaziland and is a former SRC president in one of Gauteng's institutions of higher learning. I have to ask you, why would someone who is an SRC president in an institution of higher learning be a suspect in a murder? That person has gone quite
Have
far
anything to do with?
astray.
Yeah.
Hmm?
And I'm glad Lamini has just been through so much. Like literally,
Oh,
they
poor
just
guy.
don't want him to rest. Let him, just leave him alone. He's not the guy. But to your question, Gareth, I mean, you'd be surprised what people in institutions of higher learning are interested in and actually do.
Yeah.
On the
Well,
side is one thing we need to be realistic about. This is reality.
yeah. Now, look, I agree with you, but he posted on Facebook, of all places. He said he's getting calls from journalists. He said, please release the name of the suspect, because if you keep saying he's from Swaziland and a former Wits SRC president, people will start circulating my name. He says, I've been receiving calls from journalists, and he told
Sure.
the Daily News that his life is now in danger as a result of this mistaken identity.
Leave
Can
that
you
man
imagine?
alone.
Yeah, leave him alone. He's been through a lot, and I don't think he has killed Hillary Gardi unless, unless
Mm-mm.
there's some really wacky shit going down. I think that's kind of crazy. Anyway, Ruth just reminding us that you have to like and subscribe. I always forget to do this, but thank you, Ruth, being very, very fastidious here. So please get along there, like and subscribe, get involved, because it doesn't matter how many people watch live. It doesn't matter how many people listen to the podcasts, and way more people listen to the podcasts. But just go along, give us a like and subscribe. It'll take 2 seconds out of your day, but it really helps us. And we need to get those numbers to go up so that the people at YouTube take us very, very much more seriously. So go ahead, do it.
Yes.
Get involved, please. Cape Town has been ranked as the third greatest city on Earth. Yes. Yes.
What?
Listen to this. No, don't laugh. Give them the credit where it's due. We need all the help we can get in South Africa. We'd rather be at the top of the polls over that, right? Than some of the other things. So the
Fair.
UK's Telegraph says it has finally settled the debate on which is the greatest city on Earth. So the newspaper says Cape Town is ranked third because its topography and geography makes it stand out above others, but the city has a poor safety record. Oh, yeah? You don't say so. With all the gangsters and everything. The survey looked at things like legalized same-sex marriage, it seems to be quite obsessed with this LGBTQ stuff because it also looked at LGBTQ worker protections, legal protections against discrimination. But
Mm-hmm.
basically, they're also looking at the best places to live. So I've got the full list up to number 50, but let's start at number 10 and then count down. All right. We know that Cape Town's number 3. Number 10 is Florence in Italy. Number 9 is Vancouver in Canada. Number 8 is London. Number 7 is Dubai. Number 6 is Los Angeles. Los Angeles? Really? Number 5 is Venice, again back in Italy. Number 4 is Lisbon in Portugal. Number 3 is Cape Town. Number 2, Sydney in Australia. And number 1, the best city to live in the world, the greatest city on earth, is Barcelona, according to this survey.
Oh, that's interesting.
What do you think? You agree?
Well, look, I'm not the most traveled person, but sure. Like Sydney, I know is stunning, but in terms of like living there and stuff, it's obviously different to like just being a tourist and popping in and out. And the reason why I laughed when you said Cape Town is because like my mind just automatically went to all the others, like the stuff that they don't tell you, how unequal it is and the crime, and my mind literally just went straight to that. So I was like, what? No. So yeah, but if it's up there, then
well, if
woohoo.
we had to put a city forward as the greatest city in South Africa, I think we would put Cape Town up as our best candidate.
Definitely,
right?
definitely.
Because
No, for sure, without a
it
doubt.
does seem like Cape Town just works a whole lot better and it is prettier. So I'll let Cape Town take this one. I'm quite happy. It's the only South African city in the list. You just go back and check. I don't think there are any others. I don't see any other South African cities in there, I'm afraid. Now, Marrakesh is in there at number 50. Hong Kong makes the list. New Delhi even makes the list. Mexico City makes the list. Rome, Dubrovnik, Singapore. But I'm afraid no Joburg, no Durban, definitely no PE or Polokwane. So we got to take what we can get, right?
Yeah,
We'll
no.
take Cape Town. Nice. All right. It is just about 18 minutes to 7. If you are watching the clock this morning for some reason, maybe you have to be watching the clock so you can be at work on time. And a lot of people are going back to work on time. There was a lot of traffic yesterday on the roads. Things are definitely getting back to normal, and more people are at the
Yeah.
office. I think everybody's realized like we've got to get things going. In a moment or two, we'll check in with Jaco Voigt. I was listening to a really interesting episode of Unbundled that Jaco did the other day. He brings in guests who are involved in cybersecurity, for example. And you only think about these things when it goes horribly wrong. So you got to be you got to be aware of it in the background, but you also have to know that once things have gone wrong, it's probably too late. And we'll check in with Jaco just now to find out what he's got lined up on today's show, and also talk
And
about some other stuff related to business. Because if you don't think about these things and you're not aware of it, you are asking for trouble. Just like not having a will is
yeah,
asking for trouble.
we
Right?
we only think about these things sort of like when they affect us or when they're close to us,
Mhm.
or maybe we don't because it's a little bit further. Once it hits you, it's already too late. You'd rather prepare than have to repair. That is my life motto. I wish I applied it more, but I still like to say it out loud because it sounds so cool. But it's generally that thing. If you don't make precaution for some of these things to happen, then you're pretty much screwed. And imagine if like all of your data gets leaked and then you're completely fucked.
Well, I mean, you've heard these horror stories too of people who have their bank accounts hacked into because they have some stupid. Do you know that that one big data breach we had not too long ago,
Yes,
where
yes,
all,
yes.
all those South African files were suddenly released onto the internet and people had access to people's ID numbers and everything else. Apparently, there was someone in the system who had a login, and their password was, guess, password. So when
It
it
was
came to time,
what?
they kept the password was password.
Oh my sack.
Now, I mean, if you do that, you're a moron. But people are morons, and this is why we end up with these big hacks. Because I mean, how hard is it going to be to hack into someone's password if their password is password?
Is
That's
password.
in my eyes. I mean, Yaku, this is ridiculous, right? Isn't this stupid? Password is password.
Good,
Get your shit together. Morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, nice. I'm good. And Lebang and I are busy shooting the breeze this morning, talking about everything from funerals to Bitcoin to, whether life is a simulation and Cape Town being the greatest city on earth. But in between all of that, we were having a serious conversation just a second ago. I don't know if you heard us about like this identity theft stuff, and I heard you talking to one of your guests the other day about it. People are dumb. They need to change their passwords regularly. You need to update that stuff because people will find a way of hacking in, right?
Well, I think the biggest trend or the easiest way to hack people is basically what they call social engineering. It's actually getting, exploiting people's behavior in order to exploit vulnerabilities. So there's this one American podcast that I'm listening to where they specifically just talk about security stuff, and a lot of the times people just phone in and say, "Can you just confirm what kind of I'm phoning from IT. Can you just confirm are you running this kind of antivirus or this or that?"
Yeah.
So social engineering is definitely a big thing. And then something that's interesting that I heard about, there was a big bank ATM hack in Ukraine a couple of years ago. And anyway, it was quite complicated what they did, but they actually traced it back to sending a Word document to an events coordinator in the bank, and that person's Word was not updated with the latest patches from Microsoft, and it exploited the vulnerability, and they ended up stealing, like, I don't know, something like $1.5 billion. So so it's basic stuff that cost end up costing a lot of money.
Listen, somebody wants to ask you, and I mean, this is why we love having you on Cliff Central, because people can ask sensible questions like this. Steph says, Jaco, are those password storage apps safe? I mean, I don't use it anymore, but I did use Dash.
So that's a good question. I think it's there's a couple of them, like OnePass, and there's a couple of them. My personal opinion, I'm still old school. Well, the one thing that you should do is you should never have the same password, even though if you change it on a regular basis, you should never have the same password for all of your applications, because obviously that's a problem. But me personally, I'm still old school. I like to write stuff down. So that would be my answer. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I used to use the one, and it is dangerous to have your one password, and that's kind of everywhere. But it's so hard to remember many different passwords.
Gareth, at the office, they laugh at me because there's one or two of our corporate applications. Once a week, I have to reset my password because I made it so complicated. I can't remember what it used to be. So it's human behavior. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So I think sort of touching onto that, what we see. Just a side note back. When you were talking about the roads is getting busy and people are returning to work. Just from a personal perspective, I am so happy about that. I'm so happy that I hear more and more businesses where people are returning to the office. And I know for a lot of people that got used to sort of maybe a bit more of a life-work balance and work-life balance. But I think for the economy and for enterprise-focused businesses, it's great news that we finally returning to some form of normality and getting going again. So that's just on a personal note. But I think what we see is that the only way from if you're in a business, the only way that if you secure is you've got to test your defenses on a regular basis. That's really the only way that you're ever going to know that you have comfort. And in our industry, we have a terrible word for it. We call it penetration testing. It sounds horrible. But I like to call it vulnerability testing.
Okay.
So we've got an application now where it's got an artificial intelligence engine sitting in the background, and it sits and it acts like a human being. So it will try different ways and then learn how human beings behave, and then go and try and hack according to that. Normally those type of things are just for big business. It's normally lots and lots of money to implement something like that. And we've now partnered with a local company that's developed a solution, and we can make it available in a small to medium enterprise space. And then the other big misnomer is, as long as people sit and you make sure that your firewall is secure and everything is 100%, then you're okay. But we know, like for example, later today, I'm gonna walk in at Cliff Central and I'm bringing my laptop and I connect to the Wi-Fi there. I don't come in via the front door. I walk in through the back door, and there I am on the Wi-Fi. So it's important that when you test internally and externally. And what we're going to do from a Catalytic perspective is we're inviting any company that wants to know if they let's call it penetration safe. Can we call it that?
Yeah, sure.
To shout out to us, and we'll go and do a free assessment for them. There's no risk to them, no exposure or anything like that, and we'll give them a report and say. So the worst case scenario is you'll get a report that says, listen, everything's 100%. You don't have to worry about anything. So that's our
cool.
next initiative until the end of June. We're just gonna, any company can contact us, and we'll engage them and do a completely.
That's amazing. I mean, this was obviously, it was too expensive for most small companies beforehand, and they probably didn't think they needed it. But everyone is now aware of the fact that you need to be thinking about these things. So that's terrific. And the best way to get hold of you, Jaco, is?
So if you email let'sconnect@catalytic.co.za, that's the easiest way, or just go to our website, catalytic.co.za.
All right, catalytic.co.za. That's CATALYTIC.co.za, and you can go and find out more. Well, we're looking forward to another show of yours this afternoon, and we'll check in with you then. Well, this morning.
See you later.
100%. I'll see you a bit later. Looking forward as always.
Cool, man.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, I love this, by the way, that somebody here says you should use the word incorrect as your password, because then you type it in, and if it's wrong, the PC will remind you saying your password is incorrect.
Love it. We have a couple of stand-up comedians in the comments every single morning, and I live for it.
Writing passwords down is not safe either. I know people who keep a little book with all their passwords in them, and then if someone just gets the book, they have complete access. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But like it's just generally like the safety of your passwords. Like if you have I think it's like on Gmail or whatever, on Google, if you have like the option to save your passwords, then you don't automatically have to like sit and type it in all the time. It just sort of like pops up whenever. It does make life easier, but it's so freaking dangerous. If you don't have like a password like authenticator, you are screwed, like royally, pretty screwed.
Absolutely. All right, well, here's a quick reminder. I mentioned this yesterday. I interviewed a guy who was 13 years old when the war in Rwanda started, and he lived through the terror of the ensuing genocide. His experience of it and the story of how his life fell apart and then was rebuilt from nothing is absolutely incredible. It's inspiring. It is extraordinary. His name is P. Pacifique Kabalira Uwase, and I interviewed him just the other day. This interview will be available from today, and we explore just a few of the unbelievable and terrifying things that he went through in his youth and through the rest of it, because he went from refugee to car guard to university graduate to businessman. It's an amazing story. The video of the interview with P. Pacifique is available under Gareth's Guests right now on cliffcentral.com, on our YouTube channel, or you can just get the podcast wherever you listen to that too. So take a listen. It's really, really an amazing story. You know, we often sit around and we say, oh, you know, life is difficult. I've been through such trauma. In my childhood, I had a teacher who said something mean to me, and here's a guy who actually survived the Rwandan genocide. And I think there's something in that for all of us to take away. And he really had a tough life after that for some time as well, and didn't complain, got on with it. He said he used to, when he was a car guard in Durban, and he was busy walking around in that car guard jacket of his, and he would look at the university, which was in the distance, and he'd say, one day I'll be there. And I think, that is inspiring. I think that he eventually did get there, and he did get his
Yeah.
degree, and he did get out of that car guard jacket.
No,
That's
there's definitely levels to trauma, and different stories. I mean, I've got a client who previously said to me, we need a bunch of influencers. Make sure they all have these hectic stories, and they must have come from something. And it's so it's hard to find those people, because a lot of people really just like whisk through life, and for them, trauma is, I was pushed down a hill this one time as a kid, or oh no, I fell sick, or they don't really experience things that make them strong. They just kind of grow up in their little bubble, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's something interesting. It really is.
Well, there's no shortage of interesting stuff for us to talk about this morning. We've got a whole lot more coming your way in the next hour, including Brett Rogers, who is a guest we had not so long ago. But what we want to talk to him about today is how hard it is, or how difficult it is, or maybe it's easy. I don't know, because I've never tried this, but to get a vasectomy in South Africa. And you remember we brought it up very briefly when I last spoke to him, because it's something he
Yeah,
feels very strongly about.
yeah.
And he'll tell us what an ordeal it has been to get a vasectomy in South Africa. Apparently, it's not as easy as we think. So we're going to find out. Um, there are a lot of people who probably should be getting vasectomies, especially those people who are like, having 2 kids with every different woman and not necessarily looking after them. All those deadbeat dads that we know we have in South Africa.
Yes,
But I
sir.
wonder, I just wonder if this is something anybody's thought about. So we'll talk to him. We've also got a bunch of other cool stuff coming up today. And we've got a lineup of incredible stuff on cliffcentral.com too, including our own Jaco Voigt from Catalytic, who will be on live on Unbundled this morning. Lebang's got her show on Thursday. Now, when are you actually going on your maternity leave, Lebang?
I think May will be my last month, so I start maternity leave on the beginning of June. So that's like what, 2 more weeks,
Yeah,
pretty
so
much.
2 more
Yeah,
weeks of Life with Lebang on a Thursday,
yeah.
and then she's going to be laid up at home like this.
I wish. I think I'll just have like more time on my hands. I'll just be like gathering content, like watching my kids just run around while I try to have another one. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot.
Speaking of that, the dude from Rwanda, Sanele has just reminded me that Tresor, the musician, he actually came from the DRC under similar circumstances and got to South Africa, became a car guard, and then eventually
Yes,
became a musician. I remember
I
Tresor. We've
remember
interviewed him
that.
a few times. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
very, very
that was
cool.
amazing.
Good story. So there are good stories like that. Again, you just have to kick under a few bushes and you will find they pop out. And there are plenty of reasons for you to be very glad that your problems are your problems and not someone else's. Wouldn't be so nice if you had to abandon your entire country and run away as a refugee because people were actually trying to kill you just because of what tribe you belong to. Not cool.
Not cool.
Not cool. And we should remember that. One of the things I mentioned to this guest is I said to him, dude, you came out of Rwanda. When you hear people talking like they do in South Africa about xenophobia, how does that make you feel? Because it is just amazing to me how we forget this quickly about things like that, and we move on and we think it's all in the past, and then very, very fast it all catches up, and suddenly you're back in that situation. Let's make sure we don't go down that road in South Africa. Anyway, it is 7:00. We'll be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
I woke up to some amazing news this morning.
Tell me.
I won the lotto. I play the lotto quite,
Let me just pause there for a second. And you're still here.
Well,
I feel flattered. I feel really flattered. Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Just because it's about technology, connecting your business to the rest of the world doesn't mean you need to send rockets to space and use complicated solutions. Want to simplicate things? Well, join Jaco Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, on the Unbundled podcast. With skin in the game and a keen focus on educating and assisting you and your business, Jaco decodes all the aspects of connectivity, security, and cloud solutions. Unbundled is brought to you by Catalytic and is available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Yes, indeed. cliffcentral.com. Tuesday morning, live. We're wondering where Bakabatu is. He's sick today. Everybody's getting sick. There's definitely something going around. They say that there's another wave of corona. If that is the case, and we have no reason to believe that that isn't the case, then it's not so great, because it's also giving people an excuse to not go to work. I'm not saying that's Bakabantu's thing, because he hasn't been sick all of the time we've known him, but maybe this is his one little day off that he needed. I don't know. At the same time, I know loads of people who are sick at the moment. Last Friday, I had 3 of my friends call me up and say, those plans we had for the weekend, not going to make it, feeling ill. So it's happening. It's definitely a thing that's going on. And there's something in
the air.
It's also this time of year, like we discussed yesterday. It's bound to happen. All right. So
flu.
The weird flu. Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. So let's hear from you in the comments. You can get hold of us this morning live on YouTube, but you have to like and subscribe. Otherwise, I'm not going to read your comments. I've decided that's the punishment we're going to use. So let us know. We want to hear from you. And then, of course, you can also email us if you've got any ideas, any suggestions, people that you'd like us to interview. There are a couple of really interesting books going around at the moment. I mentioned some of them yesterday on the show. We'll be doing those. We're also planning a couple of new series for you. And if you didn't do it last week, please go and check out our video that we did with BMW for the launch of the new
iX.
The iX.
Love that. Love that.
You were there for the shoot. I mean, that's a great car, right? That is
really
a great
is.
car.
I even got to drive it a little bit because I like things. And when you press
things. Because I love that you say because I like things.
Yeah, I'm just a liker of things, life things of the sort. When I pressed the start thing, it was just too quiet. I didn't hear I didn't hear anything. I was quite concerned that this car's actually not on. And Musa's like, no, just it's on. Let's go. It was just smooth. I was like, damn, if someone can just e-wallet me 1.7 million or however much I need right now, let's make it a thing. It's such a sexy car, dude. Oh my word.
100%. 100% right. Look, go and check out the YouTube video. They give a complete review of the car. So if you're curious about what Lebang and I are talking about now, you might want to see it for yourself. And we've got 2 real these guys are proper car enthusiasts in every sense of the word. So they go through it top to bottom. They talk about all the different technology that's been deployed in this vehicle, how the engine works, how far it can go, what its range is. It's an incredible review essentially of this car. And if you're interested in vehicles like that, then this is probably the show for you. So just go and check it out on our YouTube channel.
How the grill is self-healing. I was like, what?
I know. Dude, crazy,
I
right?
I want to be self-healing. Teach me, BMW, how to self-heal, because that is some fire just tech just all over that vehicle. Definitely worth the checkout.
G-Star says, please get Douglas Murray on with his new book, The War on the West. He is fascinating. I actually had Douglas Murray on my TV show last year that we did with ENCA. He was one of my favorite guests. I love having conversations with him. And I think we also spoke to him a while ago on cliffcentral.com. But it's worth getting him back in. He's just the most interesting guy, very laid back. He's extraordinarily articulate and eloquent, and I actually prefer listening to him than I do reading him. So I've got War on the West. It's something that I'm going to read, but I'm actually feeling like in his case, because he's just such a great speaker, that it might be worth listening to the audiobook. Lebang, when you read an audiobook by listening to it,
I don't read audiobooks. I listen to them.
I mean, you know what I mean. When you listen
I
to an
know.
audiobook, do you feel
Yeah.
like you're cheating? Do you feel like you're not really doing the
Definitely.
proper? Yeah.
Definitely. I feel like a lot is being taken away from the experience because when I read it with my own, I'm in charge. I imagine how it is. It's my voice. When it's an audiobook, it's like it's really good. There's a time and place, like in transit, blah blah blah. So there's definitely like a place for it. But I'm such a sucker for just the way things were done, dude. I have to sit. Even ebooks like are really quite difficult for me to get into. Like if push comes to shove, I'll do it.
Mm.
But I'm the girl who's sitting at home with the book open versus on my tablet or on my little Kindle or whatever they call. I'm just a sucker for how things were done. So yeah.
100% right. Just to complete the conversation about Douglas Murray, G-Star says, I'm busy with his book, Madness of Crowds. Well, that's the last one that we spoke to him about last year. And that's a really good book, by the way, especially if you're interested in this idea of how social media, and in particular Twitter, has changed the way that people, deal with certain complicated subjects.
Yeah.
Amazing book. So take a look because that is really worth reading. If you're looking for something to read, and Madness of Crowds is not very long. It's not a difficult book. It's not a long, complicated tome that you have to get through. So go and get an eyeful of that, or an earful if you prefer, because it's a really good book. All right. As I said,
yeah.
No,
I'm
go
just
for it.
thinking. I'm trying to fill up my kids' bookshelves, just because it's the right thing to do. And I was thinking about the concept of a baby shower, about how like I've had so many baby showers already. Well, I've only had 2. I mean, but still, like one really is enough. After you have more and more kids, it's like it becomes a whatever thing. But I'm thinking of just asking my friends to just sort of like each just send me a book for my kids that my kid would like to read as they grow or whenever. That's just like what I'm going to do. I don't want to have a whole event. I don't want to have a whole party. It's just going to be, hey Lamang, when's the baby due? Baby due's in July. Send a book over. That's how
Right.
I fill up the bookshelf. Yeah.
Well,
that's my plan.
Funny, I was with the nephews on Mother's Day, and the eldest one is now 8, so he'll be turning 9 in January next year, and he loves books. And my brother and sister-in-law, to their credit, have been reading him a lot of really cool books, and he's been reading them himself. And he's reading Roald Dahl, which I grew up with that. I mean, that guy was just unbelievable. So whenever I think of kids' books, I think of him. And I just loved all those stories as a child. I couldn't get enough of them. I can still remember some of it almost off by heart in my head. So you know how you can remember certain rap songs? I remember certain like Roald Dahl books, almost verbatim.
Yeah, I remember just getting like every single Disney book delivered to my house every month, a new one. That was like the big thing for us. Like, oh, we had like a whole collection and it was a whole vibe. But I think now we can definitely up the ante a bit, just take it a step further. These kids are smarter, they've got more access, blah, blah, blah. We can definitely push it a bit,
For sure.
That's the vibe, yeah.
And these days you don't even need to like buy the actual book. You can just get the Kindle and read it to them or whatever. So there are ways to do it. But I think there's something nice about actual kids' books on a bookshelf in their room. I mean, there was no night that I was a child that I didn't go to sleep reading something. And I think that that's probably one of my favorite things when I think back of my childhood. It also gives you a really good general knowledge.
Yeah.
And
no,
nobody really tests general knowledge at school. So it's something useful to have. It's something useful to have as one of the weapons in your arsenal, because when someone talks about something and you know nothing about it, you always feel like, this conversation doesn't really include me. But if you have a reasonably good general knowledge, you'll never have that feeling. And it's nice to be able to jump in on a discussion around everything from marine biology to, water systems to technology to history to anything pretty much. It's great.
And you don't have to know like everything about the subject, but like knowing just enough, even if it's just a little bit for you to put in your 2 cents. I think it's cool. It's showing the interest in whatever the topic is what, and that's what books do. That they make you interested in a variety of things that would have probably never landed in your lap. And it teaches a lot more than one would think. There's a huge like gap between kids that grow up reading and kids that don't. I mean, you remember when we spoke to the first lady? She was just like, that early care development phase. If
Oh, yes.
already at that stage, if the kids aren't even, there's no book in sight, then the long-term effects of that kind of thing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and in South Africa, we've got to take seriously the problem of very young kids whose early childhood development, particularly in education, is just a non-starter, because those kids, you don't have a chance then. You're finished if you don't start off with that stuff. If it isn't part of your life when you that age, and we're talking about the formative years, somewhere between like 2 and 6, right, Lebang?
Yes. Yeah.
That's when it all
Early
happens.
childcare. It's like
All right,
the most important part.
a couple of cool things that are, you mentioned a gap in people's education. Well, how's this for a gap? This is a TikTok video someone sent me. Take a look at this. This is entertaining as hell. So it's this girl, and she's drawn a face around her mouth, but she's got a gap between her teeth, and then it's almost like she's got this other creature living on her face.
So I smaak you in my arms hou. Ja, dit is so lekker. In your body, a soos, a GTI gebouw.
So it's a South African TikToker. I can't. At prachtig, I think. Is the
She's
actual,
super talented.
Now this would make me think again about. I'm not going to, but it would make me think about going onto TikTok. I mean, there's some really talented, funny stuff going on there. We always give TikTok shit, but there's some clever people doing some amazing things, and they're getting thousands and thousands, if not millions, of views from all over the world. Right?
Yeah, it's literally a downward spiral. I must warn you right now, Gareth, before you even think of going on TikTok, you'll go there with the intent of just checking out maybe one or two things, and you'll spend 3 hours there because these kids are so good. I promise you, these kids just come up with these things. And I don't think, we need to be on every single social media platform. We don't have to be a part of everything, but TikTok is just a world on its own, and it's just way too addictive. Like, just don't do it. It's a trap, dude. It's a trap.
I'm not going to, I promise. But we were talking to Dr. Hanan yesterday about the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, which has been going on now, and it's pretty much all anyone's talking about. It's what everybody wants to discuss because it's these embarrassing celebrities doing dumb stuff. But he hadn't watched any of it, so he wasn't paying attention to any of that at all. And and then he went down the rabbit hole, and he says he only got to sleep at 1:00 in the morning. After starting at like 10 o'clock at night, because again, once you start with this stuff, you can't stop. It's like a drug. You get drawn into the story, and then before you know it, hours and hours have gone by. So just quickly, this is kind of an interesting story. There's a push at the moment for South Africa to get an extra public holiday in May. So before you jump up and down and say, "Yay, that would be great," or you become one of those grumpy people who goes, "Not another public holiday." Let's just look at where it comes from. So the Congress of Traditional Leaders, that's CONTRALESA, has called for the introduction of a new public holiday to celebrate and acknowledge African spirituality. So they want to call it Ancestors Day, and they say it would fall on the 8th of May, be dedicated to reflection, prayer, and the appeasement of our ancestors. So no chance of it happening this year because we're already on the 10th, but they are looking at recognizing the public holiday and are pushing for a formal change at national government level. We believed it should not only end there, where the 8th of May is merely recognized as Ancestors Day. We think it needs to be taken further and be made a public holiday, said the Secretary General of CONTRALESA. He added that while Ancestors Day involves some ritual performances, people are expected to select the ways in which they want to remember and reflect their own ancestors. We will not prescribe to people, because it goes in accordance with the rituals and customs of each and every family. So we already have, just to give you the overall view, 12 public holidays, 7 of which have already happened, including an additional day off to celebrate Workers' Day, which fell on a Sunday, remember? It was last week. Now, the next public holiday is Youth Day. That's on the 16th of June.
Yeah, boy.
Consecutive public holidays are significantly impacting working arrangements and shifts, and a day off can impact economic productivity. It can help stave off fatigue-related issues too, so there are goods and bads to this. But according to this story, we may need another one on the 8th of May.
Can,
What do you reckon?
Can I just say, so I think if there was ever a time for us to get to learn more about our ancestors and learn more about really the impact and where we come from, in the past with regards to how we got here, there's no better time than now. So many of us are disconnected, Gareth, from our ancestors. There's been so much, so many lies and just like weird negative connotations built around the concept of ancestors as a overall. And I think that has like a direct link with how you live your life. And this is my personal belief, which I'm not imposing on anyone. But I think the time is now that definitely, yes, let's use this as a learning moment. If you don't know much about your ancestral lineage, blah, 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 I think a whole public holiday is absolutely necessary because there's so many of us who are just so disconnected. And in your life, you see the problems that you have as a result of not knowing who the fuck you are and where you come from. Whether it should be in May.
But again, should it
I
be
don't
a
know.
public holiday?
Yes, the majority of this country is living in disarray, and a big part of it is just that disconnect. I think if we can just figure it out again and just go back to the drawing board, like, okay, cool, what is actually the truth, and what's what, where am I from, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
The misconceptions around
know-
ancestry, I think so for sure.
You know, the point of Youth Day is lost on most people. Most people don't remember what happened
Yeah,
on June 16th, all those years ago. The point of Freedom Day is lost on some people. We just went through Freedom Day. Point of Workers' Day is lost on some people. I wonder how long it would take us to just treat Ancestors' Day like just another day, and people won't actually spend it doing any of that stuff. You can do that every single day if you want to now. You don't need a public holiday to do it. So I don't know what difference it would make.
well, look, for me, I think it's like a mass thing, right? So a lot of people don't know the reason why things aren't going well for them. They kind of in the dark about the ancestral concept, everything. They just don't know anything about it. And also, unfortunately, they don't have the ability to just think for themselves and say, hey, let me actually go figure this shit out, because they've just been so torn apart from it. I think making it a national holiday will even plant that bit of a seed that may say, hey, dude, just go check this out. Maybe this could help you in any other way.
I would take that seriously if people even knew who their grandparents were. Then I'd say, oh, well, you care about your ancestors. Because, I care about like family history, and I care about history, full stop.
Yeah.
And there are so many people who go on about like, oh, the ancestors, white and black people, by the way, are like, I come from Europe, I come from Vikings, or I'm from the Zulu tribe that was in this part of KwaZulu-Natal, and we conquered the Mtetwas or whatever. These people don't know that for a fact. They've never gone to the trouble of finding out. These records are around, by the way. It doesn't take a huge amount of effort. When I was a school kid at high school, I went to the Human Sciences Research Council in Pretoria. They've got a big library. You don't have to pay money to join. It's free. And they've got all these books that deal with records that go back 100 years. They'll tell you who your grandparents and your great-grandparents were. You can look up birth, marriage, death certificates. You can find this information. It is available for everyone in South Africa. And they tell me ancestors, they care about their ancestors. You ask them, what was your grandmother's name? And they're like, I don't know. Then you don't care about your ancestors. So don't give me that shit. Don't believe it.
I hear you,
I
and
just
that's
don't believe
totally
those
cool, and that's your experience. But like, Gareth, not everybody does or doesn't know their grandparents by choice. Some people are legit like stripped away from their parents and grandparents. So for them, it's a case of, it's not that I don't want to know these people. I'm not being naive and not knowing them and not knowing my lineage. Doc, for fuck's sakes, I don't have a choice.
You know
I don't
what?
know them because they're just not there. They weren't there.
That's a great excuse. You can look this stuff up. And frankly, a lot of people have relatives who are alive who they don't even ask. They're not even curious about this stuff. They've got living relatives. They've got living ancestors. They never ask a question because they're not even curious about it. But then they want to have Ancestors Day. Bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on that. I say a lot of people just want a free day off. I also think a lot of people claim tradition and spirituality, but they have no idea of how they claim it. They're not even sure where they come from. They're not even sure which languages their grandparents used to speak. They're not sure what part of the country they used to come from. They don't even know where they're buried some of the time. So if you don't know that stuff, then why should I take you seriously when you talk to me about Ancestors Day? Because I can tell you who my ancestors are. I've done the research myself.
Lucky you.
I didn't get it. No, not lucky. Hard work me. I went and found out. No, I went and found out. I was the one who drew up these documents. I was the one who
Yeah.
looked them up. I was the one who went to these libraries as a kid before Google existed for me to go and look at this stuff. You want to talk about ancestors? Then fine, I'll talk to you about ancestors, but you have to be a serious person. If you're not serious about it, I'm not going to take you seriously.
Yeah, not everybody will take it seriously. I also recently just started like the journey because growing up, Gareth, for me, ancestors was always just a dark, negative thing. It just was so directly linked to witchcraft that I wasn't even allowed to tap into that side. And it pains me that only in my later years, when I'm like 30, do I realize that actually that's not true. That's a whole lot of hogwash that I was just fed growing up so that I can just believe in this one thing. And only now I'm like, actually, there's a whole lot going on that is so directly connected to me and how I live my life that I don't know about up until now. And if, for example, like I know I want to raise my kids and I want them to know all about it from the beginning. It's not just, this one-sided thing. And lucky them or hardworking them or whatever, because they'll get access to that. But so many of us didn't even have that access. So what I'm saying is, let's have this Ancestors Day just so that we can even plant it in people's minds that, yo, bro, go check this out. It could be a real thing. And you're absolutely right. Half of people won't give a rat's ass. They're not going to care. For them, it's just going to be another excuse to just kind of continue on with life. But for those of us who are genuinely curious and want to reconnect with who we really are, I think let's just do it.
Yeah, look, if you're really interested in it, I think it will draw you in and you will be absorbed by it. And unfortunately, also, a lot of people only really become interested in where they come from when they're old. So, the young people, if you don't ask your grandparents while they're still alive and while you're still young, you're going to miss out on this stuff, those stories. And really, if we're going to talk about your ancestral heritage, you don't have to go back 400 years. You don't have to go back 200 years. You can go back to your grandparents and maybe, if you're lucky, your great-grandparents. Those are your ancestors. There are only 16 of them. And you know who they are. You can look them up if you don't. They're within living memory. There are documents to prove they existed. No matter where you come from or how disassociated your family's been from each other, or which aunt lied or which uncle didn't tell the truth about who their real father was, that stuff's going on. But if you want to know, you'll find out. And you can't tell me that you care about your ancestors, but you don't know who the hell they were, because then you don't care about them. You don't. Finish and clar. If you really care about it, and you want to have an Ancestors Day, and I'm all for an Ancestors Day if it's going to mean people will actually spend time talking about it. But don't think a lot of people really care. I think they pretend to care. They say that this is part of their heritage because it makes them sound like they're in touch with their roots, but they're not really. They don't really know where they come from. They don't really care where they come from. They're so focused on today that their interest in history is like this small. And then they want to claim like all this stuff as well. It's these people who claim, oh, no, I come from these great people, but they don't really. They don't even know who the grandparents are.
The real danger is really the people that take advantage of that, right? So you and I know very well that most people don't care. The people that take advantage of the fact that people don't care are the dangerous ones, because they go around just spewing absolute hogwash. And we believe everything we see, right? So we sit there and we go, yes, that is true. If I do want this and this, this is all I need to do. Whereas it's really not that. And it's not an easy concept. It is a difficult and sensitive one. That could also reveal some things about you and your family that you don't want to know, that are actually like, damn, maybe you were better off.
We always refer to this, and it's such an interesting idea, is that maybe a fifth to even a quarter of people, they think their dad is that guy, but it's actually not. That's an interesting idea. Throw that in there, because that's for example, if you're Jewish, the reason that you're Jewish is you get it through your mother, because your mom can't really lie if you're born from her, but she can lie about who the father is, and you never really know for 100% certainty who the father is, right? This has always been a problem throughout history.
Yeah, it's one of those global. It is not unique to South Africa, although I could beg to differ. But yeah, it's just one of those global things that we have to deal with.
Well, we got a lot to talk about, and I suppose that this is a great intro to what we're going to talk to Brett about this morning, because Brett comes from a really interesting background. We spoke to him not so long ago: sport, marketing, fashion, art, and a whole lot more. He's been a Springbok swimmer. He's been a massage therapist, a model, a stylist, TV presenter. But we chatted to him just a short while ago about a whole lot of other stuff. And then we ran out of time before we got to this subject, because I think this is something that a lot of people want to know about. Brett really wants to talk about the process of getting a vasectomy in South Africa. So he's going to join us now to talk to us a little bit about this. Hey, Brett, nice to see you again. How are you?
Morning, team. Nice to see you guys again. It's great to be back.
Yeah, nice to see you, man. Listen, I'm sorry we ran out of time last time, because this is such an interesting subject. Vasectomies in South Africa. Have you managed to get a vasectomy?
Yes, I am 33 days in to the past operation. So yeah, it's done.
Wow.
All done. It's
All right,
great.
so
I'm so excited about it. Yeah.
All right, so you got your vasectomy, but now tell me how difficult it was to actually get that, because apparently it's not as easy as people think.
Well, it's incredibly difficult. It's so I wanted to get a vasectomy first of all, but I also wanted to get a vasectomy to see how the process is for somebody who's not like on Discovery Health or something like that with a lot of money, because you can pay for it. There's a lot of people out there who do pay for it. I think it's between 5,000 and 10,000 rand, and you can just get it, and that's great. But if you follow the free route, which is the route that I followed, which is great. So I also feel a little bit like I'm biting the hand that feeds me, because I need to go back for a test in 2 months' time. But it was a nightmare. There's a few reasons why. So the one reason is it's very difficult to even find out where to get a vasectomy, and it's bizarre, but that's true. I eventually found via a article somewhere that they were doing free ones at Tygerberg Hospital. So I did some research and I found a guy there. And so I don't want to make this story too long, but essentially I met the guy and he told me, listen, you're going to have to see a psychologist. Otherwise you can't do it. And I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, to an extent I understand, but I also feel like, you know, if men in South Africa don't want to have babies, let's not encourage them to have babies. No disrespect intended, but you know, we've got a problem. And so I got asked 5 times if I'd seen a psychologist by the time when I was in the hospital, when I finally got my appointment.
I want to stop you there, because this is amazing to me. You know, no one sits anyone down when they are going to have children and says to them, hey, are you sure you want to have kids? Are you sure? Are you sure you want to have kids? Are you sure you want to have kids? Are you sure? Have you seen a psychologist about the fact that you want to have kids? Because people, and I mean, listen, you get people who've thought about it and who have planned all of it, and you get those people who life happens to them, and I get both cases in that sort of in either situation. But the reality is, Brett, won't you just hold that microphone away from your jersey, because it keeps scratching?
I did that last time as well. I'll do that.
Yeah. And when you talk about this with people, they're like, oh no, you need to see a psychologist if you want to have your vasectomy, but you don't have to see anyone if you're going to have a kid. Which to me is a bit strange. I mean, you need to be checked out by someone when you're making, because a lot of people make very bad decisions. I mean, some people are smart enough to make the right decisions, but a lot of people have no idea what they're getting into. And it's interesting to me that you were asked 5 times about a vasectomy, but no one's sitting prospective parents down and saying to them, hey, have you seen a psychologist about the fact that you want to have a kid?
Dude, my pants were down. He was about to cut me, and he asked me again, are you sure you saw a psychologist?
Jeez.
And it was crazy. But from that first phone call, from that first meeting, which was quite a pleasant meeting, actually, you know, it was in Tygerberg Hospital, which is a nightmare. It's like mazes everywhere, which is very concerning for healthcare. But I spoke to him that day, and he told me I'd need to speak to their psychologist. I never heard from the guy for 6 months after that. And I was following up. It's a WhatsApp line. So I was following up often. Like every 2 weeks, I was like, hello, Mr. Johnson. Hello, Mr. Johnson. Hello, Mr. Johnson. Never got back to me. And he phoned me about 6 weeks ago. Well, it's not 6 weeks ago. It was 3 days before my vasectomy. He phones me on the Friday and he's like, hello, Mr. Brett. It's Mr. Johnson here. I'm just checking that you got your vasectomy. Did we organize that vasectomy for you? And I'm like, no, you didn't. Sorry, I'm going to have to rid my dog at some point. No, I didn't get my vasectomy. He's like, oh, excellent. Thanks very much. Bye. And then he hangs up on me.
What?
And I'm like, dude,
Wow.
dude. So I phoned him back. I'm like, no, you didn't get me the vasectomy, man. And he's like, oh, when can you come? And I was like, when can you take me? He's like, Monday. So and it was a Friday. So it's like, okay, fine, I'll come in. So I arrived, and it turns out it's the procedure. You just can walk in anyway. You can just arrive.
Right. So let's just go into a little bit of the background here. Why do you think it's important for you to get a vasectomy, and what was your thinking? You obviously don't want kids, and it's something that's not interesting to you. It's probably something that you've thought about quite a lot, because I don't imagine these kinds of decisions are taken lightly. But give us a little bit of insight into how your mind is when you want to go and have a vasectomy. A lot of people have them because they've already got a kid or two and they don't want any more. A lot of people have a problem with the idea of having children because they think Earth is full. Professor David Benatar at UCT is the world's most famous anti-natalist. He believes it's wrong. He thinks it's a cruel thing to bring another person into this world, which is the opposite of kind of what we're taught as whatever it is, general civilization. We're taught, oh no, bringing kids into the world is the best thing you can do. It's the most defining and important contribution you can make to the planet. So what's your thinking?
Well, I border on anti-natalist. I'm very happy for people to have babies, but I think that my personal view, of course, but I think the world is a disaster. I think it's awful. I think it's a horrible place to bring people into. That's like a very base level thing, and maybe that's really awfully cynical of me, but I think it's awful. I also think it's dying and it's becoming right wing and terrifying. And I think it's a big responsibility. I think it's a huge responsibility to bring children into the world. I don't think it's a small deal. There are thousands and thousands of kids out there who need homes already. And if I want to have a kid at some point in my future, I will try and adopt one with blessings. That would be wonderful, That's how I'd like to have a kid. But excuse me. But I don't want to put the control of my seed into anybody else's hands. I want to be in control of my procreative abilities.
Oh, apparently some of these vasectomies are reversible, right?
Yes, I actually wanted to ask about that because I'm on baby number 5 and I've been begging my partner to please get a vasectomy because I just think,
I know how you can help with that. Just
like
keep close.
We're just weighing out the options, but he's scared because he's like the reversal rate or the percentage of being able to reverse it is what scares him because he might want to have more kids in future. I'm like, okay, good on you, bro.
How many more?
That great story. But so the reversal thing is like, it's a real thing because it's all fun and well when you're still young and you're like, oh, I never want to have kids, bro. Screw this. And then you turn 50 and you're like, shit, I've got no one. I've done nothing. Let me try something. And then you want to have kids. So like, how's the reversal thing? And obviously you're not interested in it at all, but as a concept.
I think he's frozen there.
I lost you for a second there.
So go ahead, Brett. The reversibility of this thing. Did they talk to you about that at all?
Yeah, they did. And the very first thing that they say to you is like, do not, under any circumstances, look at this as a reversible procedure. Like they're very clear about that. It's like, sure, it can be done. Maybe it can't be done on you, it can't be done on everyone, but it can be done at great expense. So yeah, if you want to have a baby, then sure, maybe you should have to prove that you want to have a baby by spending 50,000 rand to tie your tubes back together again. But but no, they encourage you to think of it as a permanent procedure.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that I kind of just disagree with on a fundamental basis. If you just take the evidence of the fact that it's better to be alive now than it has ever been in human history. It's easier to be a human being now than it's ever been in human history. We're freer than we've ever been across the world by a measurable degree. People are less impoverished and less miserable. They're not necessarily less miserable psychologically because a lot of people are still looking for a purpose in their life. But I think the idea that the world is worse, that's your perception of it, clearly,
sure.
Brett. That's how you see the world.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and if you see the world that way, thank God you're not going to have children, because you'd imbue them. You'd imbue them with that same view of the world, and then they'd grow up.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Instinctive
I'd imbue
more
them
and
with with a little bit more reality than the world is a wonderful place. You know, sure,
Well,
the world is a wonderful place if you like. I mean,
Thank goodness it's a moot point, because you won't
sure,
be
it is
having.
a moot point. Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, you have. I mean, I think really that at some level, and this is where I haven't got kids either, but I may want to change my mind at some point, like Lebang says. There is a general optimism to people who are investing in the future, and I'm not saying people who randomly have children by mistake and then are not responsible parents. I'm saying there are a lot of parents who do a lot of hard work, who put in the effort, who are raising great kids. And by and large, those are the kids who are going to take the world forward and will solve things like climate change and all kinds of other problems that we think are insurmountable at the moment. There was a kid born here in South Africa who's doing more for electric cars and climate change than anyone else in the world right now. And we're not sure whether his mother or father had any idea when they made him that he would be making this kind of a difference. And you don't know, Lebang, one of your kids may end up growing up to change the world in some positive way too.
No, I know it's happening. It's going to happen. I know.
That's going to happen. But either you take the view that the world is terrible, and I sometimes feel that way too, Brett. So I'm not having a go at you, or you take the view that the world is good. And really, depending on that, you'll decide whether to leave a legacy or not. This is something we spoke about early this morning, right, Lebang?
100%. Like how you raise your kids and how you view the world is really the biggest part. And that's exactly why they asked you 5 times if you're sure about this. Because
guys, you're grossing me out. You're grossing me out, the both of you. So gross. Like, if you're not gonna have a baby, it's so good that you don't bring babies to the world because you're a bad person, Brett, because you don't see the world as a nice place. Come, guys. The person's role in life is not to have babies. This is not the reason why we exist, and it's not to say that just because people don't want to have babies that they're not gonna. You said earlier, Lebang, I'm like 35 and I have nothing and I have no one. Oh, so you're gonna have a baby? That's your solution? Your solution to I'm bored in life is like I'm gonna have a baby? No.
Look, it happens.
If you want to have a baby, it has to be for a reason.
No, you're definitely right, Brett, but it happens.
I'm not having a baby because the world's a terrible place. There are other reasons why I'm not having a baby, but that's just part of the story.
I'm just quoting you because you said that. So I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. But what do you think the purpose of life is then?
I don't think there is a purpose to life. I think, which I don't think is a bad thing. Because I'm like, I don't believe in an afterlife or I believe in if we're going to head back to that space, that's a beautiful way of looking at life and what the meaning of it is. And if the meaning of it is to continue your seed and your line, and that's cool. But for me, the meaning of my life is to give a positive. I'm talking about positivity while talking about how terrible the world is, but it's to leave a positive impact on it, and how I choose to leave a positive impact is different. And I find meaning in my life through my friends, through the family that I do have, through art, through culture, and through my connection with it, through creating things that are not babies. I think there's a lot that you can do with life that has nothing to do with babies or procreation.
I don't disagree with you, but it does sound like that you even caught yourself out there with a little bit of cognitive dissonance. I mean, it does sound to me like, there's this fine line you have to walk. You might not believe in kids, and I know lots of people who don't want to have children and who cite, all the terrible kids in the world and all the horrible things. And I don't think you're an idiot for saying those things. I really think that that's all valid as part of the argument. But you got to be careful not to sound like a complete nihilist, because nihilists invariably, no matter how much they protest that they're having meaningful lives and that they're happy and that they enjoy what they're going through, very many of them are suicidal and not particularly thrilled about the fact that they exist in the first place. I mean, that's, part of nihilism is this idea of, well, whatever. There's no point to any of this. There's no reason for me to be good or bad. There's no reason for me to add a positive contribution or to participate.
What's your meaning? What's your meaning for life then, Gareth? Like the same question. Like, what's the meaning of life then for you?
Well, I think we should all try to at least leave the earth a little bit better than we found it. Maybe you add. You mentioned art. Maybe you paint something beautiful and you leave that behind. Maybe your contribution.
You're giving the same answer I did, right?
Yes, I'm well aware of that.
Cool.
That's why I said to you, I don't disagree with you. Maybe your contribution is that you leave behind some discovery. Maybe your contribution is that you make some people laugh and you make some people cry and you make some people think. I don't think those are bad things. But the greatest, invariably the greatest contribution, and I say this as someone who doesn't have kids, that you can make is by leaving the next generation of human beings.
Cool. Yeah, I'm a bit like, I'm still taken aback a little bit by the idea of like not having a purpose. And like, obviously we all have gone through different experiences and we all, view, it's all POVs at the end of the day. I just think like, I don't know if I'd be able to go through life literally just like knowing that I'm just doing this for the sake of doing it. Maybe we are in a simulation. If really there's no purpose, then kind of like, then what are we doing? Like, then I may as well just walk in front of the bus tomorrow, because what is the end goal of what I'm doing? Is how I view it. And you're definitely right in that having children shouldn't be your thing. It can't be your thing. You still need to have your own personal thing going on. And maybe having kids is just the cherry on top, which is how I view it. And a lot of people believe that, about me. It's like, oh my word, you have 5 kids. That's all you've got going on. Oh my word, no. These kids just make life that much nicer for me, that much more enjoyable for me.
You know what, Lebang, you say that. I met someone not so long ago, and he was saying to me, when he thinks back, this takes a huge amount of honesty, and not a lot of parents are willing to say this. He reckons if he could have it all over again, he wouldn't have had his kids. Now that's a hard thing to say because it's socially unacceptable to say it, and that's why I'm interested in Brett's point of view on this, because we're not dealing with easy answers and easy questions here. This is tough stuff. This has to do with existentialism. This is like the stuff that people ask themselves when they're in their quietest and most private moments. It's like, what do I want from life? What do I derive meaning and purpose from? And a lot of people don't have that. It may be kids for some, it may not be for others. And I'm curious as to what drives everybody. I said earlier, Brett, maybe it's part of the answer that I should give you about purpose. I do think we're in a bit of a simulation, and I don't mean that in some kind of conspiracy theory way. I mean like you're playing a game, right? You're the player one in your own game, and you're going to go through this life, you're going to play this game, and hopefully along the way you're going to have interesting experiences, connect with people, and have a full experience of being human. You're going to have the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows and the excitement and the pain and all of that stuff. And I think that the ultimate reason for being is to have that mortal experience and to make the most of it. Learn as much as you can. Try and do good if you can do good. Try not to do bad if you can avoid doing bad. But along the way, for some people, it's also creating new life, which is truly miraculous. And for some people, it's avoiding making new life because you don't feel that your new life is going to be either raised properly or it's going to have a good chance, or you think the environment is not conducive. These are the questions that ancient humans used to ask themselves and that we're still asking ourselves thousands of years later.
And also it's what we're doing right now, right? The three of us are having a conversation and we're sharing our experiences with one another so we can get different perspectives on the same thing. So I believe that there's somebody out there right now, Brett, that's listening and has genuinely just been considering a vasectomy. Like, you know what? I just can't do it. I'm not going to do it for whatever reason. And you had to be here right now sharing your story so that they can make a better decision on what they need to do. So whether you want to believe that or not, that in itself falls as a part of the purpose. The part of the purpose of us being here is those lived experiences, is sharing that. As you said, for you, it's your friends, it's the this, it's the that. That's a part of it. It's speaking your story into the universe so that whoever needs to freaking hear it right now will hear it and make their decision. Say, you know what? That Brett guy this morning on Cliff Central, man, he made so much sense for me. That's the direction I'm going to go. So that in itself counts as a purpose, believe it or not. That
100%,
is
100%.
that.
100%. Connection and human connection is vital to me and to the world. And I really appreciate that you said that to me. Thank you. Another person that I hope is listening are the people who are responsible for helping people get vasectomies in this country. Because I think, we're
Brett,
having
hold the microphone out here because it keeps erupting on that
dude.
jersey. Sorry there. Yeah.
Sorry, dude.
Driving me crazy.
So something that I was thinking about there is that, the people that do need vasectomies, like we're having the beautiful ideological discussion, but about the people who need a vasectomy, let's talk about a person who's not using condoms out there, who doesn't want to use condoms. And, like it or not, there are people out there who are like that.
Sure.
I'm certainly one of those people, and that is part of my story. A guy like that, so let's say he wants to do the right thing. He's like, cool, I don't want to have any kids, or I don't want to have any more kids, or my wife's body can't handle another pregnancy. They've said it's a bad idea, but I still love my wife and I want to make love with her. And he goes to the clinic, and they're like, no, the psychologist says that you can't have a vasectomy, or he can't afford it, or he can't find the people. And now we've got a person out there who's having another baby, a person who maybe shouldn't be having a baby and doesn't want to, and is therefore not going to be a great parent. Not therefore, but it's likely that there are many unwanted kids out there that could be, and they destroy the parents' lives, they destroy the kids' lives. And I'm saying destroy, right? But within reason. I'm just.
And are you going around evangelizing for vasectomies? I mean, is this something that you believe should be spread around, or is it just a decision you've made for yourself? And you feel this morning, you feel this morning that you just want to let other people know how it goes, but you're not trying to convince them to have one.
No, I'm not out here convincing anybody to do anything. I'm not an evangelist about anything except for trying to be a good person. And to be kind to people. The only thing that I care about is actually telling my story and letting other people out there know that, if you want to get this done, you must get it done. Like, it's sore, it's painful, it's not a nice thing. I don't want, people out there like, oh, vasectomy is not painful. It's painful. It's not a nice thing to do.
Did you have to sit in one of those round cushions with a hole in the middle?
No, I actually could have just driven home straight afterwards. Luckily, I didn't. They gave me these pills, which were very, very nice. And I'm glad that I didn't have too many of those, to be honest, for real. But it's something that can be important, and I think people out there should, if they want to be able to get one, should be able to get it. It's good. Yeah. It's good for everyone in that regard.
So let's
it's
recap here.
The PR for vasectomies right now, it's just so bad. Like, it doesn't look good. Nobody's like really putting any glitter on it and wrapping it up in a nice bow and making it sound like something that you should even want to do. They really just make it sound like, well, it's the woman who should be taking contraceptives. She's the one who's responsible for, it's her body so it's not surprising that vasectomies are just, like you said, it was hard to find out where you can get one. They're not promoting it. They're not like, they just like hush about it. And it's annoying.
Sorry for interrupting. You hit a nail right on the head there. Something that I'd forgotten to speak about up to this point was two of my women friends out there. They started crying when I told them. And not crying in like, oh my God, you're not going to have babies, but crying because they were so proud and so happy that a person out there was taking the responsibility of contraception out of their hands, out of the chemicals of their body's hands. So many of the women I know take the pill because they have to, because they're afraid that they're going to get accidental pregnancies from men who are not careful, and they were beside themselves. They were so happy. It was quite a moving moment. And a few have said, oh, thank you for doing this. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. But I appreciate that this makes you happy. And I'm interested in, for you, Labang, like some of your girlfriends or yourself, how does that feel regarding the responsibility of contraception?
No, it's a huge deal. It is a massive deal. As I'm saying to you, like on a more personal scale between me and my partner, I've said to him, you have to go and get a vasectomy between the two of us. Historically, it's always been on me. It's always, I need to do this. From a young age already, in school, they're already teaching you that if you don't want to fall pregnant, you are on your own responsible for how this is going to work out. So the fact that now, the option really is bring broaden, and really now guys can even start taking a certain pill. Why isn't that in the newspapers? Why isn't anybody making a noise about that? It will literally free so many like young women from insecurities that they are raised with, and they have to ultimately just inherit because of this concept.
I just want to say at this point, because there are a lot of people like Z here, for example, saying, "Are we talking eugenics today?" I don't know if she's being sarcastic. The fact is this: like, you should not be going around convincing anyone else whether or not to have kids. There shouldn't be a rule. There shouldn't be a government who decides whether or not you can have kids, because we know that the government can't even decide how to spend the tax money they steal from us in a responsible way anyway. You have to be responsible for yourself. And the reality of this is, like, there's a part of me that is enormously impressed, and I don't mean to patronize you in any way. I hope that's not how it comes across here, Brett. But you took control of your own destiny. You made a decision. This is it. The line ends with you. You're going for the vasectomy. You're going to have it done. You feel you're making a positive contribution to the world by getting yourself this operation
off the DNA train.
No, which has been a tough. I mean, I don't think that you were like nonchalant about it. I don't think you didn't take this seriously and think about the consequences. But at the same time, you thought about the consequences that might have happened if you didn't do this, which I think is responsible. So again, if you want to do it, do it. And I just love the fact that I've got both of you here on the show. One of you has 5 kids. The other one, who's never going to have any kids, but who says, and I took note of this too, Brett, that there are millions of kids all over the world who don't have parents, who are looking for someone to look after them. And if you decide one day you do want to have kids, you adopt a child. I think that's a tremendous contribution to humanity, as much of a contribution, if not more, than just making a child by mistake, which so many people seem to do. And I think that's also noteworthy. So, we can criticize each other. We can argue about whether or not it's right to do this, right to do that. But in the end, it's down to every single person. And if you make a decision that you feel is the best decision for you, you have my support.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't feel patronized at all. I feel, like this is a beautiful discussion. This is why we're here. This is why we exist. It's beautiful to have these discussions and to disagree with each other. And I appreciate that that you see it that way. Can you imagine like the joy and the beauty of adoption? I mean, I've a couple of friends. They're a lesbian couple, and they adopted a baby, and there was a documentary done about them called "Waiting For," and it's one of the most magical moments I've ever seen in my life. To see these 2 women see their child for the first time. And to see that connection, like, it was just instant. It was so beautiful. And I just can't help thinking, that child, man, that child is saved.
Got a
That child is
chance.
saved. And
Well, I mean, like, we talk in politics about privilege. The real privilege in this world is growing up with both your parents and having them actually love you and love each other. It's a very rare thing that very few people have. By comparison, Scott says 100%, I have an adopted son. Best decision ever. And then Sweet Pea brings up something which may make some people uncomfortable. My cousin was born 10 years after my uncle had a vasectomy. He had it redone when she was 3. So sometimes there are mistakes. Sometimes it doesn't work 100%, right?
oh, that's adorable. Well, I have to go back in 2 months' time to test this. So basically, you have to ejaculate 24 times. So I'm
wow.
practicing a lot.
You should have led with that.
I've got some calluses on this hand here. It's getting hard to handle.
How long do you have to? What's the period of time that those 24 ejaculations have to occur in?
About 3-4 days, Gareth. I'm joking.
Busy man. Wow.
No, it's actually old science. It's 3 months, but they encourage you to ejaculate 24 times before that 3-month period. So in like 1.5 months' time, I have to go back and give them a sample to make sure that there are no little swimmers in there.
And how far are you now, if you don't mind me asking, Brett?
I'm about five weeks in, but let me tell you guys, like the funniest part was like part of the operation. So you're awake during the whole thing, and you lift that hospital gown, and so they snip. They give 2 injections, one injection, and they snip, and they do the operation, and then they snip the other side. So he snips the first side and pulls the vas deferens out, and I'm hearing things, and it's uncomfortable, but it's not painful. And all of a sudden, I hear, "Oops," and then a short intake of breath from the doctor, going, and then I hear the nurse go, "Ugh." And I was like, "Oh my God!" This nurse just went, "Ugh." Like, oh
What
my
happened?
God.
What was it?
So I just decided to be quiet, and then like about a minute later, I hear some fiddling around, and I know what's happened, bro. He's dropped the tube into the sack. So he's had to go looking for it, Gareth. I love your face. And then he has to pull it out, and he goes, "Oh, there we go. They're a bit slippery." I'm like, "Oh my God, dude."
Oh, dude. Oh my God.
I've got the thrills just hearing my own story.
Oh no, that is absolutely terrifying. You know, I've just I'm completely put off. I'll take my chance.
You've put those listening off vasectomies for good. Well done, Brett.
I'm not here to lie. I'm not here to lie.
Well, listen, dude, I'm pleased we got to talk to you about this. It is such an interesting subject, and it's something I suppose a lot of people just don't think about until it eventually comes up on their menu. And the fact that you've gone ahead and done this, I mean, kudos to you, and that you can talk about it. Kudos.
I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Do you mind if I do a quick short plug? Nothing big deal.
What is it?
So I'm just we'll be doing an awesome thing on our Instagram. After this is in _ on color at the moment. We're actually going to be doing ancestors in the future, which is really exciting. But we're talking about color, its importance, and it's really exciting and fun stuff. And I think our listeners will enjoy. So it's after this is in __.
Very, very good. Cool. We'll go and take a look at that too. All right.
I appreciate you guys so much, man.
Have an excellent morning, everybody. We will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. bright and early. Good news for those people who were very, very nervous at the start of the show when Bitcoin was at 30,700. It's now 31,700. So it's gone up. Yay, Bitcoin people. All right. Just I thought I'd throw that in case you're not feeling so great, you know? Especially after you've had to hear about like balls being operated on.
Yeah, all morning.
Oh my God. Anyway, thanks very much, everybody. See you tomorrow. Ciao, ciao.